I've been waiting for this day. Why is that, you ask? Simple. If I had a time machine and traveled back to, say, 2009 and spoke with my younger self, we would... Well, actually, we would first probably shoot some lasers at each other, but after that, I would ask him a question. That question being, what is your favorite anime? And I know what his answer would be. He would say, Fate Stay Night. Now, why is this? Well, there are a number of reasons. For example, outside the realm of the internet, I am known in real life by the name of Tristan, which means that basically anything related to the Holy Grail and King Arthur legends instantly has me interested. Not just that, but this show has magic and swords and mystical beings and just yes! Yes! Nowadays, however, I feel like Fate Stay Night, at least the original Fate Stay Night, wouldn't even come anywhere near my top 10. Because when I watch it now, while I can see the aspects of it that made me enjoy it in the first place, I can also now see flaws. Flaws everywhere. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, the original Fate Stay Night from 2006. Let's jam! First off, before we get into the nitty-gritty with a plot summary, I should probably point something out. While it is true that I do have a copy of the Fate Stay Night visual novel in my possession, this review is going under the assumption that you, the viewer, and also me, the reviewer, have never actually played it, and quite possibly never will. And I'm doing this for two reasons. One, I haven't finished the novel myself. Gonna get on that very soon. And two, even though that's four, but two, it is my long-standing belief that adaptations have to be able to stand on their own and not be beholden to the original material at all. You should not have to play Fate Stay Night in order to enjoy the anime. Fate Stay Night is basically my point. So if you have a problem with any of that, please feel free to turn off the video and walk away. Now, on to the plot summary. In an alternate version of modern-day Japan, there exists a war. Not just any war, a magical war. Fought between powerful mages who are given the ability to summon powerful servants, mystical heroes from the past, to fight one another in glorious combat. The goal? Why, the coveted Holy Grail, a mystical object with the power to grant any wish to its holder, something many would say is worth killing for. Enter Shiro Emiya, a normal, everyday high school student with a surprising knack for fixing things. After accidentally witnessing one of the magical duels between servants on school property one night, focus is shifted to him as outsiders must never learn about the war. This leads to his accidental summoning of his own servant, one of the more powerful classes, Saber. Thrown into this war against his desires, Emiya must now fight not only for his life, but for the innocent lives of the townspeople. For not every master cares about collateral damage. Now, there are a lot of things about the show's premise and general story that I liked. There are reasons why I did enjoy it in the first place. In some respects, it's like a giant game of who would win, starring the mythical heroes of legend. Like, how is that not awesome as a concept? All these fantasy characters come together and fight one another to the death. It's not all noble either. You have good fantasy characters and evil fantasy characters. They all have their own personal ways of doing things, but they all have the same goal. This kind of thing is just fun to watch. You can place bets on this thing. Well, at least you could if it wasn't structured in such a way that the main characters are the ones in the middle of every major battle. And you know the main characters are going to win. It's not much of a story otherwise, but it is slightly annoying that most of the servants are almost in sort of a queue to be defeated instead of, you know, actively trying to kill each other. There are other issues about the world in general too, like magic. Magic, for example, in Fate Stay Night, makes little to no actual sense. Now, I realize that magic is magic, and to a certain extent, it is supposed to be able to do the impossible without much explanation. But the problem with Fate is that they try to half-explain it, but not really go beyond that. Anything related to the Grail is left generally unexplained. It can do whatever it wants, because magic. But then you have Tosaka, who attempts to explain different kinds of magic over the course of the show. Projective, reinforcement, like there are tiers to it, like there is order and structure to everything, but then she has these gem things that contain some sort of magic power, and we don't really get explanations about that. Yeah. The rules of the war itself are also vague at times. We were given a very general explanation at the beginning, like the number of masters and servants, etc., but then most of the quote-unquote rules of the war are only revealed when necessary, and then sometimes get contradicted just to suit the plot. There are lots of aha moments to catch the audience off guard. Did I catch you off guard right there? Good. Like, at first it works really well and gives us some rather nice insight into the world, but then after a while, especially with one twist in particular, it all becomes rather trite and stupid. Ultimately, however, the story does work. As much as I complain about the relative mystery of the plot, it is structured rather well, with each master-servant pair getting decent enough screen time to understand who they are and their general motivations for wanting the Grail. Well, for the most part, at least. Okay, let's get the biggest problem out of the way. Our protagonist, Shiro Emiya, is an idiot. Beyond his almost ludicrous amounts of selflessness, which at times is bad enough, he has this remarkable habit of getting himself into highly dangerous but easily avoidable situations, if only he took a moment to think about what it is he was doing. While he gets dragged into the war more or less by accident, and since he's not a thoroughbred magus, we can't really expect him to know exactly what he's doing from the get-go. However, it takes a good while before he is blessed with the ability of common sense. Oh, I just found out that a bunch of mages and other magical servants all want to kill me. Guess I better continue to go to school alone and unprotected, like I always have. Oh hey, there's that little girl who commands a giant behemoth that almost killed me the other day. I bet it's perfectly fine if we just hang out for a while without protection. Like, seriously, Emiya? Did you not know that people die when they are killed? The biggest problem with him, however, is how, for the longest time, he outright refuses to let his own servant Saber fight. Why? Because she's a girl, and he would sooner die in battle himself than let a girl get injured. Like, I understand the concept of chivalry, but there's a difference between chivalry and the death wish. Now, Saber herself is a bona fide badass when she's at full power. But because Shiro's a failure as a mage, she runs out of power quite quickly and becomes weak and useless for long stretches of time. She's a very rough, down-to-business warrior, but is not without her softer side. She has a very strong moral code that she lives by, but at times can also be impulsive when she gets frustrated. She's great because she is a character, not a token stereotype. Sure, for a few episodes she's a bit of a damsel in distress, but you sure as hell know she is nowhere near pleased with the situation. And with that exception, Saber, as a character, is still amazing, even if the show doesn't treat her that way. Last to round out those who could still be considered a main character is Rin Tosaka. Rin is more or less the only magus who happens to have any inkling of exactly what it is they're doing. Considering what's at stake in this war, I did find it surprising, however, that the one magus most capable to fight as a master was a high school girl. Thankfully, she's extremely good at what she does. The only problem I've ever had with her is her lack of judgment in regards to Emiya. Sure, he's the main character, but putting that aside, there's really no reason for her to help him save his life on multiple occasions, team up with him against the other masters. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense for her to do that. Like, I guess I could blame that on an unused romantic route between the two of them that existed from the original visual novel, but really, I would have thought that that would have gotten edited out a bit better. At least in a way that made more sense. Give her a reason to do that, other than she might somewhat like him, but not really? Maybe? I don't know. Here's the thing, though. I really like these characters. Like, I could continue to sit here and ramble on like I have about their myriad of faults. The forced humanizing of Saber, Emiya's hypocrisy with his own moral code, but even after that, I still like these characters. They are, by all rights, good, decent people with ambitions and desires. Like, Rin could have just had Token Tsundere as her only character description, but she's so much more than that. Saber could have just been a stoic action girl that gets moved around like a chess piece on a board. And Emiya, like, as much as he's an idiot, and again, he's an idiot, at least by the end of it you can see some semblance of growth with him. His experiences of the war change him and make him not just a cookie-cutter protagonist for the player from the original game. Like, he comes close, I grant you that, but he breaks the mold by being different, however frustrating that might be. What else is great is that while each master and servant pair seem to come in one after another, which does not make this tournament of skill really realistic, and it's more like an old dungeon RPG, when they do have the spotlight, they do it magnificently. Each enemy they face has their own different set of skills and ways to be defeated that need to be figured out. The other masters have motivations and reasons for wanting the Grail. Not always the most virtuous, granted, but much more than just being greedy for the sake of greediness. They certainly make up for my problems with the main cast, and by main cast I mean Emiya, who is still an idiot. Ignoring the fact that if you happen to watch a show called Fate Zero, the prequel to Fate Stay Night, you'll know what better animation looks like. The majority of the time, the animation for Fate Stay Night looks like a bunch of mediocrity. To be fair though, there are a bunch of standout moments, though generally those are just from fight scenes. Now, Studio Dean have never really been the pillar of animation, but that's never really been their strong suit. Their designs are brilliant, their static images are impressive, it's just when you get to the actual movement that occasionally things tend to dip down a bit. Thankfully, they were able to push out a lot of really good times here and there to make up for a lot of the mediocrity. Well, except for that one time someone thought about adding a giant, horrible 3D rendered dragon out of nowhere that we will never speak of again. The music for the series was composed by Kenji Kawai, master of Atmosphere. While several of his pieces for the show are rather brilliant, I feel like they don't have the same amount of flair that he's brought to other shows like Death Note or Higurashi. Now, he made up for that by improving all of the music drastically for the 2010 Unlimited Blade Works adaptation, but we're not actually talking about that right now, are we? The dub. Let me put it this way, the dub is perfectly serviceable. It does its job, and it's not ear-bleedingly horrible. But if I had a choice, I would watch the show in Japanese, personally. And why is this? Well, it's not the fault of the actors at all, but when you have all of these different characters from all these different places around the world who have come together to fight for the Grail, you don't expect all of them to speak like Americans. And when they do, it just sounds all rather plain. Now, to be fair, it's not like the Japanese dub gave them accents either, but I don't speak Japanese, so that's not something that immediately comes to mind when I listen to it. It's not a problem that I hear and think about constantly while listening to the dub. So, did I like this show? Well, back in the day, I thought it was amazing balls. Now, however, not as much. Now, it is still an enjoyable experience, and one I will probably recommend to a lot of people until I actually am able to see Ufotable's Fate Stay Night adaptation, which should be significantly different from this, and maybe then I would stop recommending this one, maybe not, we'll have to see. But then there is also the question of which should you watch first, if you're planning to watch the show at all. Should you watch this first, or should you watch Fate Zero? Honestly, in my opinion, if you're going to watch both anyway, watch this first, because this show doesn't hold a candle to Fate Zero, and if you watch Fate Zero first, you're gonna start watching the show and be immensely depressed on just how different the two shows are. Like, this adaptation overall is not horrible, but it just has a lot of factors that I feel will make a lot of people sweep it under the rug as better adaptations come out down the line. Now, I don't necessarily agree that that's what we should do, but I can at least see the mindset of the people who think that way. But with everything in mind, I have meticulously calculated values for the categories of story, characters, animation, sound, and my own personal enjoyment, which, after using those calculations to summon Saber to fight by my side in glorious battle, because that would be amazing, has me awarding Fate Stay Night with an overall score of 6.3 out of 10, and a recommendation to stream it rather than buy. Its flaws are numerous, but overall they get boiled down to a giant list of nitpicks, and have many things of value to balance it out. Ultimately though, the series can, and more often than not, will be skipped by the majority of viewers in favor of the Ufotable works, and I can't really blame them. If however you have the time and wish to witness this series, then I should inform you that at the time of this video, Fate Stay Night has been licensed and is available from Sentai Filmworks, though formerly it's been owned by both Funimation and Geneon. This means, however, that it's not available on Funimation's website for legal streaming anymore, which is quite unfortunate. I have been told, however, that if you live in America, you should be able to find it on Hulu, though being Canadian myself, I have no way to confirm this, so it may be gone by the time you actually watch this. For alternate anime recommendations, I point you towards Scrapped Princess as an example of a complete fantasy setting that deserves more exposure, but will never get it much to my displeasure, as well as Shakugan no Shana, or just Shauna as a more modern fantasy series with a lot of similar elements from Fate, both of which are worth the watch, so hopefully between them you should find something to your liking. And that's it from me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.